Welcome to the Our Vibes podcast. We are four Latinas just vibing.
Talking about the things that matter to us most, our experiences, our insights, and our vibes.
I'm Caroline.
I'm Hubbard.
I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Jennifer.
And today we are joined by a small business that we are personally big fans of, Barrio Drive. Welcome, guys. Introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Yaya.
And I'm Jax.
And we're from Barrio Drive. We're so happy to have you guys here today.
Yeah,
It's
homies.
We want to start with some questions. We wanted to know how did the business start? How do you guys get started?
So we started about 7 years ago when I was already in college and I needed money for my textbooks. At the time, there was not financial aid for me because we're undocumented. So my parents were paying for my school, but then $200 textbooks and things like that. And so I decided that I wanted to sell something to make money because I couldn't work either. I was going to school from 7 all the way to 6 or sometimes even 9 o'clock. And then we were just having a conversation in the living room and I was telling Jax, I need to do something. We need to do something. And then I just remember sitting there. My dad just got up. He went to his room. He came back with $50. Well, $100 in total. And was like
50 or less.
50. I can't do math.
Neither can we.
So there's no one got to say facts for that. Anyways. And so then my dad was like, here you go. Start your business. I know $50 seems like not a lot, but at the time it just felt like, oh my God, because we didn't have any. So that was a lot. And so with that, I went and started, I went to buy vintage dresses. So I don't know if you guys know, but on Thursdays, Goodwill has $1 sales. So I will go on Thursdays.
I did not. Is that still in effect?
I think now, good question.
The
last time I went is $2.
Yeah, I also think they go by color
Inflation.
I knew the color thing.
Yeah, the color thing. So the color was on Thursdays, they'd say blue, it will be $1. So now it's probably $2. So I would go during my lunch break and then I would buy the dresses. And then that's what I started doing. At the same time, Jax...
I started selling band shirts. So we grew up selling at the swap meet with my mom. Even in Mexico, we would sell at the swap meet. So the way that I did it was that my mom had a friend who sold band shirts, the dichos one. They're I'm hers, I'm his. So we went...
We're all
the
too
cute
familiar.
Ones, right? So the lady who did that would get them at the screen printer. And so she told us where to go to, which screen printer to go to. And the screen printer that I used to buy the band shirts from is actually our screen printer that we still use to this day.
Oh,
yeah. And I would buy the band shirts Nirvana. I would also sell Jack Daniel's shirts.
I was on
Those are
the classics of Jack Daniels they had.
Yeah, the classics ones. I would sell those. So I would get them for $2.50, and I would sell them for $15 to $25 sometimes.
Wow.
We love the hustle.
Yeah.
We love it.
It was like that for a while. Maybe a year or two.
I think it was more because then I started college and we started in 2017.
Oh, that's right. And then I don't know if you guys remember back in the days, people would have their little Instagram boutique. So that's how we would sell them. So people would come in their email and then you would PayPal them. So that's how we did it for a while. And then we felt that it was not enough. I love the vintage dresses, but it wasn't really talking to me or it wasn't representing what I wanted. And so we just had another conversation and we were like, okay, so we have been doing this for a while. Let's combine our money, which at the same time, we didn't have that much money.
Yeah,
either.
we weren't making bank. We were making enough to buy our books, buy our shoes. But we were like, hey, what if we created something that we could actually take ownership of? Because I could sell a Nirvana shirt to somebody, right? But that wasn't anything to do with me. I just sold it to them. I didn't create the design. I didn't create the shirt. Nothing was mine. So we wanted to do something that really talked about our experience, but also helped us because at the time we were also paying our DACA renewals because for our family, we grew up having to pay our own stuff. Not because my parents didn't want to help us, but because the money just wasn't there. So we had to pay for our own DACA, and it was hard. We even got to the point where we had to camp outside a organization to have them help us for our DACA, and that was I think that was really not hurtful, but it was disheartening because like we're young, right? So we could withstand being outside of the building at 2 a.m. But we would see like viejitos like 80 years old in line, and that day specifically it was raining. So we were like, we need to do something.
I think that was the moment we were like, no, this is not okay. Because not only it dehumanizes people, I think for us, like Jack said, we're young, so we were okay. But then seeing the abuelitos, the tios, taking their family member to just wait, mind you that there's like no baño there, so people had to like figure that out. And then the organization, they would say only the first 10 people will go in. And so the line was very, very long.
Yeah, like down the block.
People were like, so you're not supposed to camp, but you camp because you have to be one of the first 10.
Because now you don't have an option.
Right, right. And then sometimes you take your papers and they're like, oh, you're missing one. And so then you waited for nothing. So that was the moment when we were like, this is not okay. And then we were like, okay, what can we do with, like, we kind of used it to kind of give us more, like a push factor.
Yeah, motivation.
And so we combined our money, and then we were like, okay, we're going to have this brand, but like, it can't just be a brand. It has to be something where we could help somebody else, especially with Otaka, because we know that people say that it's not a lot of money, and we hear comments all the time, it's 500, you have 2 years to make up the money. It's not that easy. It's really not.
Like, it's not a lot to someone who may have the resources, but for people who are like going paycheck to paycheck, it's rough.
Right. Yeah, and it's also like, it could be not $500 might not be a lot, but for a family who might have to renew 5 DACAs, 3 DACAs at a time, it's a lot. It accumulates.
Right, and even if it's one, that's your food. And so I think
that could be part of your rent for the month.
For sure. So that was very meaningful for us. We were like, we need to make something that it's gonna not only help us, but we have to help the community and give back. And that's how we started. And then once we got a little more stable, we started the fund.
I love that.
Yeah. How is it like when you ran your like little like boutiques and band shirts? How is it different from now to running Barrio Drive?
I feel more like proud of what I'm doing, because back then when I remember I used to sell band shirts to Chicano Batman's wife, so Bardo's wife, and it was cool, right? It's cool, right?
Casually dropping that.
I know.
Well,
No biggie.
I love Chicano Batman, but like, see how that's super cool, right? But then you can't really take ownership, because it's like, well, that's somebody else's design, some other, like, it has nothing to do with me. So now when we're sending it to people who like I admire or that I really like their content, it's something I could take pride in, because it's a design I did, or just something that really belongs to me, and that's how I feel about that.
Who's been the coolest person so far that you've seen with your work?
Chicano Batman. We had one of Chicano Batman's
I don't know.
to wear our Abolish ICE baby shirt. I think that was cool. Well, to me it's cool because so Bardo used to be my substitute teacher. So I have a thing where I'm like, so Bardo used to be my substitute teacher for high school for like a good year. So like, to me that was super cool when we were able to kind of sort of connect. Bardo himself hasn't worn our shirts, but a band member has. So, but I'm trying to get myself there again. Like, hey, it's just, I feel like it would be cool to be like, hey, by the way, you used to be my substitute teacher. But
Were they different as a teacher? Like, is it a different vibe?
Well, he never really wanted to sing for our class. Like, you would tell him.
It wasn't School of Rock or anything.
Yeah. Well, I think he was like trying to be really strict. Like, I'm a teacher here.
Yeah, okay.
But it makes sense.
Boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries.
But I think to not discredit the little boutique that we had, because we learned a lot. I think like for profit, I would buy a dress, and it was very cheap, but then I would pay for the shipping, I would pay for the supplies, and then the margin was like $3. Yeah. And so I think those little things helped us know how to really manage that in our own business together. So I learned a lot, especially about shipping, like weighting your things, what's good packaging, what's good packaging, but it's just a lot of wasteful things. So I think having that to start really helped us a lot to learn about the process of just selling.
What has been your favorite design so far?
For me, it depends on the day. Today I like the Mexican one. But right now my favorite is triunfando con la bendición de mis padres, because I think it goes back to how we started and why we're still working so hard. We really do want to make it big so my parents don't have to work anymore. And so I feel like everything that we've done so far and we have been able to accomplish is because of our parents. Like we said, like my dad is waiting for us outside. They're very supportive. Like every time you see us, we have a parent with us. Or a tia.
Our chaperone.
Because we don't know how to behave. Just kidding.
We love seeing them on your TikToks as well.
And they love it. They really do love it. It's not a scripted, I promise. That's it.
No, it's so fun because a lot of the times, obviously for us, it's easier because we're like used to social media and stuff, but they don't always get that space.
Right.
And there's also not a lot of resources for people who are usually Spanish speaking, or they're harder to find.
Right.
So that's something that I personally love. Like I love how you guys find a way to put resources into it. Like I have your guys' business card like with the with the magnet on the fridge.
I love
That's why I'm like read that.
What I love about your Triunfando shirt, you guys went to New York, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that vividly. And you put your parents in Times Square. Talk more about that.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So my dad has always wanted to go to New York to see the statue.
Both of them.
Well, my dad mostly. They want to go everywhere, but my dad has always talked about that, and so it was very cool. It was really fun to go, and then it got sad.
Like it's amazing to be able to have the opportunities we have because we do have that and we have certain privileges. But I think it's hard to be able to go to these places knowing that. While our parents go with us everywhere, there's very much places they can't go, not because they don't want to, but because they can't. So when even the Triunfando shirt, we made it solely because we wanted to figure out how to kind of make our parents a part of the trip that we were taking that we knew they wanted to go to. Like we have, I took videos of us showing my mom Times Square because my mom very much also wants to go. So we took videos of us showing my mom Times Square, and then we went to see the Statue of Liberty, showing my dad the Statue of Liberty. And in fact, they didn't even know we created that shirt. Like I'm scared of driving, and I was barely learning, like getting comfortable to drive, and I had to go pick up those shirts by myself because I didn't want my mom to ask me like, oh, ahora quisiera. So I had to hide the shirts, and we took them. Right. We had to get some of the the sweaters embroidered outside of where we usually do it because we needed to get them like the week before. And we created that shirt for that specific reason. And then one of the days we were like, oh, what if we just get my parents? I think I told you like at 3 a.m. I woke you up and I was like, I have an idea. What if we get my parents? Like we create this shirt and then we have my parents in a billboard in Times Square, and then we call them and we show them. And that's kind of how it got created because we've always do what we can to highlight not just like the elders, our parents, but elders in general. Because for us, like we could say, we're undocumented and unafraid, but it's a very different experience for people who are older. Like we have an uncle who doesn't like Texas because of all the racism that he had to endure, and the difference is that we could just be like, oh, well, you know, they don't say the word illegal. But the thing is that whether or not you hear that word, it's still something that brings a lot of like hate towards us, and we feel it.
Right.
So it's like our Ningún Ser Humano es Ilegal shirt. We make it in Spanish, not because we just want to make a Spanish shirt, but because it's important to us to have shirts that elders who don't read these things in English could understand it and see it and also feel empowered. Even if it's just for a little second, I think it brings a lot of like safety and a lot of happiness to somebody who doesn't usually see those type of words.
Yeah, even as someone with English is my second language, it makes me so happy to see stuff in Spanish. Because there's so many brands that are like,
it's a positive.
Yeah. Why does every shirt say that?
No, but it's like there's a lot of like obviously Latino-owned brands, but it's most of it in English.
Right.
And when you see something in Spanish that resonates with you, like I can wear it, it's part of me, and it makes me feel proud.
I think that's a promise that we made to ourselves. We didn't want to fall into that. We wanted to have things that were meaningful to us, that were intentional. And so like every time there is a design, we literally sit there in our bedroom. Like there's nothing so professional.
We don't have a fancy office.
We don't have an office. We have a garage.
Yes.
And we just talk about like, okay, but how is it gonna look? What's it gonna represent? Like we are very intentional in that sense. And yeah, sometimes those meetings are in the middle of the night. Like, wake up, look.
It's always like a crackhead hours where you're like, I have an idea, I need to do this.
But that has been our goal since the beginning.
Have you always been so close?
Well, we're 4 years apart.
Yeah.
And so I think
we also always have shared rooms, so.
Yeah, so that has... But I think so, because, you know,
I
like,
love that for
being
you.
the older sister... that doesn't mean that we don't argue. It's like a regular sibling. Like, we argue. Like, we argue all the time, but then we forget, and then we're like, you want something? You want to eat?
But the fact that you can collaborate, a lot of siblings can't even collaborate on it.
Yeah.
Can't even figure out what to eat that day.
We still can't.
No, I think it comes with that. I think it's still like a very like sibling relationship regardless. But at the end of the day, we know what the goal is. And so we don't really have like arguments or fights like that. No.
Has it ever been like where you have had an argument and you don't want to talk to each other, but there's something coming up and you have to do it?
No, not really.
Thankfully, no.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Where's wood?
And I think it's because we've always been like that, like our family, like my brother, our parents, like the same. I mean, they also get mad at us, but then they're like, okay, so where are we gonna go? Like, it's not that we dismiss the issue, because something about our family is that if something happens, we gotta talk about it there, which seems annoying sometimes, but I think that helps us
good,
kind of move
though.
on. Yeah.
It's good, because if not, there's also the parents who are like, they never mention, and they're like, bueno, la comida está servida, ¿vas a comer o no vas a comer?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, not
Yes.
hungry.
Now that you brought up the family business aspect, has your parents ever pitched you guys an idea and you're like, that wasn't a very good idea?
All the time.
Yeah. I think it's also because I'm really hard on everything we make. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm like very strict on yes and no, and sometimes my parents will give me an idea. I'm like, nah, that's bad. But then I'll tell them. But it's also because that's kind of just the way I am. Like sometimes she'll pitch an idea and I'll also be like, no, like
All the
that won't
time.
sell.
Or sometimes I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. Why?
Yeah.
But I think because we have different. Well, I'm not very creative in that sense, like drawing. So I think I created something cool, and it's not that cool.
But it's also like when I design something or when I have an idea, it takes a long time.
Right.
So like even this design, this shirt, Rompiendo Ciclos, this design we had in mind like years ago.
Yeah.
But I have a process where like I do it and then I let it sit, because sometimes when we create something, it looks super cool at the moment, but then back in the day when we would create something super cool, we would release it, it wouldn't sell like that.
Yes.
But the reasoning was not because it wasn't like a cool idea, but the idea hadn't like taken its process to actually become something better. So like that's also why our designs are a lot better now,
Right.
because we actually have a different process where we take our time, let the design live its course first, and then when it has lived its course and we come back to it, we're like, you know what, I actually don't like it. Oh, you know what, it's actually a super cool idea. Maybe we switch this, we change the wording to this, and it becomes something better and more sellable and something that people could really relate to.
Right. Like this one, Rompiendo Ciclos, I really wanted to do that. But then, like, what's the drawing behind it? Like, we didn't know what to put. We didn't want to put, like, the typical chains and things like that. And so we just sat with the design per se, but not the act. Well, the quote,
The concept.
yeah. But not the actual drawing. So sometimes it takes a lot to make it match what you're trying to say, and then have a drawing that backs it up.
Do you draw all of the designs?
So now it's a different process. So back then I used to draw absolutely everything, but now if I do like a draft and send it to somebody else, because you just, as a business owner, sometimes you just have to take the L. Like, you know what, I'm not good at doing faces. So then you just send it to somebody else. And I think that's also something that helps the designs to become better, because I think sometimes you could get your ego hurt and be like, no, well, I could do everything. But then there's things that you're giving less of, if that makes sense. Right. Like even the quality, we could decide to profit more on shirts and give less quality, but at the end of the day, we also think that if people are putting their effort to save up money to buy our merch, we also need to put that effort to give them good quality merch, and merch that also just really resonates with people, and not just like a simple Échales Ganas shirt and sell it, something like that.
That we did have an Échales Ganas shirt.
Yeah, we did.
I had a question. Are there common misconceptions about Barrio Drive?
I think sometimes people think that we have all this money, and so we get a lot of requests sometimes
For free merch too.
for free. Yes, and we can't afford it yet. And
we
so,
wish, but we
yeah,
can't afford it.
And it sucks because we don't know how to say no sometimes, and it also, when we have said no, sometimes people get hurt, but it's not that we're trying to be mean. We just, and sometimes those people don't even follow us. Like, honestly, that
It's
part.
audacity for me.
Yeah, we had like influencers too who asked like, hey, can I get free merch? Like, I'm gonna do this. And sometimes that specifically is very disheartening because you see that they buy somebody else's brand that's like a $90 shirt. My shirt, it's way cheaper than that, but you were able to save up and buy their merch, but you want me, a smaller brand, to give it to you for free. And at the end of the day, they still don't follow us on top of it all.
And they say they're a big fan.
Yeah, I'm like, how are you a big fan if you don't follow me?
The thing is, it's not just like the value of the merch, but it's the hours of the work behind it, the hours of the design, all the process and all the stuff that you have to do, like put it in the packaging, make sure everything is like right, like the address is right. It's a lot of like little work that people don't see behind it.
Definitely. And I think sometimes that's what gets missed, and people just think it's like we're just printing shirts to print shirts, and it's not like that.
I love that y'all touched on this because I feel like sometimes people want to support small businesses, but they're like, it's too expensive. I'd rather go to like Amazon or rather do this, and so they don't end up supporting because of that. And I think they think that y'all are just upping the price on purpose.
Right. And to be honest, like the profit that we get after everything's done, because it's not just buying the shirt. Like, you have to buy the blank, and then you buy the screen printing, and then all the other supplies.
And the screen printing is expensive. Like,
Because we have to pay per color. It's not just one fee.
And we love colors. Like, specifically a shirt that we're creating right now. Just the screens, it's $1,000 up. It is just screens. That's not touching the printing. That's not touching the blank itself, because the shirts, we're also getting better blanks. So the blanks they cost a lot more too. It's a lot of money.
Like double the price.
It's triple, actually.
I haven't paid attention to the numbers.
I haven't done the math.
And that's not even considering like obviously all the cost of the supplies, but you have to pay yourself for the time too.
That's something that people don't know. We recently started paying ourselves.
And by yourself is just me, because she doesn't get paid.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. She has a job.
I'm like, I think, and that's something that happened recently, maybe in the last few months. All this time, it was just reinvesting into the business. And I think that's why people think that we have money, because we come up with like more jobs. But the thing is that, because we're putting the money back into the business.
Yeah, and I think also part of it is that when like we have a DACA fund, so I think people think that we have money because we have a DACA fund, but the reality is that the way that it runs, it's self-sufficient because we have merch that's specifically just for that. So when those sell, we are able to generate money, but we don't have like that money out of our pocket.
Yeah, no, that goes back to the fund. And so we are very strict with that. Like, if it's under the DACA fund, we don't touch that.
Yeah, we don't even like we don't keep like not even $1, not even 50 cents. Like 100% goes to the DACA fund directly.
For those that might not know what the DACA fund is, can you explain a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so the DACA fund, we started a fund where we help people pay for their DACA. So DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which is for kids who were brought up when they were young by their parents from wherever, and they don't have papers. So we get a permission, which comes with a work permit and a social security number for us to work. And it's a $500. Now it's up. They raised the price recently, starting April. Oh my God, starting April 1st, it goes up to $555 if you renew it by the internet, and like 600 something if you do it by mail.
Serious right now?
Yeah, and you're supposed to renew it every 2 years, so we call it our American subscription. So we started the fund to be able to help people pay for that, because like we've mentioned before, it may not seem a lot, but a lot of people don't even have like a lot of like money to save like on the side to just have to spend on something like that. So we have a whole collection. It's called the DACA Fund Collection, and through those products, if you buy it, 100% of all the profits from those products go towards our DACA fund, and through there we just help people pay for their DACA.
And we make sure the process is fairly easy, because we have applied to other places and they make it very difficult to have to turn in all this documentation, and you're already like worried about like maybe not getting it on time or maybe getting it denied. So we try to make it as easy as possible so people could request the funds, and we could kind of just go ahead and send them if were able to, because it's already such a stressful time.
Yeah, no, that's amazing what y'all are doing with that. I have some friends that are under the DACA program, and I know it used to be every 3 years, right?
No, I think it's always been every 2
Yeah.
years.
Really? Okay, yeah. And they said they had like changed and the prices had gone up, and I was like, oh man. And they said it was tough to like be able to pay other things on top of that.
Right.
And it's kind of messed up that they up the price of like to do it by mail, because there's a lot of people who may not have access to internet, who may not be knowledgeable in technology, or who might not have the resources to actually do it online.
Right. And that's just the application. Some people have to go to lawyers to apply.
Yeah, they have to pay for lawyers.
So you have to pay the fee in addition to just the application. So it's a lot more money.
Yeah, and on top of that, like right now they're also super backed up. So they say every 2 years, but usually you're supposed to do it 3 months before your
It's gonna expire.
expiration date. But now it's up to 6 months. So there's people who have like a job right now, right? But then it expires even if they already sent in the renewal. If they don't get it renewed, not them, but if the government doesn't approve their renewal on time, they lose their job because they
Yeah, I
don't
had
have
a
a work
friend
permit
that
anymore.
they were stressing about it. Yeah, that's so
It's
scary.
like a grace period, because I mean, if they're that backed up.
Yeah. And that's someone's livelihood
government.
too,
You
like
can't
their
ask the U.S.
job.
government to have a grace period.
No, I mean, like, if you already filed like the application, but they haven't processed it yet,
Right.
there should be at least a time so that you can still be working, because it's not your fault if you already filed it and they just
Right.
haven't done their job.
Yeah, but you also could be denied. Like there's little things that like here we not us, but people in general could go buy weed, right, at the dispensary. But if you're DACA, you can't, even if it's legal in the state. Federally, you can't do it. So if you go and they scan like your ID, then you are in you could get your DACA denied because of that. So there's little thingies.
Know that.
Yeah.
What are some misconceptions about DACA that you've heard?
That is a status. There's people, even DACA people themselves sometimes believe that when you have DACA, you're not undocumented, and it's like, no, you're still very much are. So I think that's one of the biggest ones that people think that's status. Even our family, they think that we could like pedir our parents, or we're like, no, we're undocumented
Why haven't
too.
you fixed your parents?
We're not there yet.
I'm gonna fix myself first.
I gotta fix myself first. I think also that we're children, that everybody's a child. It's we're adults.
Were you always aware of your status growing up?
Yes. We were, well, for me, I was aware, but I think it wasn't something that I thought about it as often until I went to college, or when I was in the process of applying to college. I remember the first time that my parents took us to do you remember we went like Primer Día de Mayo and we were wearing white shirts? We used to live with my grandma. Well, back in the day, they used to like do this
March, right?
Oh yes,
It was a march.
We went to a march.
What's it
Yes.
called? Día del Paro de Inmigrantes, something like that.
went.
You went. So our parents took us. That was our very first march that we went. And so they didn't sit us down and told us. They were just, we knew. It was something that it was known, but not talked about in our family. And then when it was time for me to apply to college, that's when I was like, wait, I don't have that. Oh, I don't have that. And so that's when it became more like a limitation for me, I would say, because there were a lot of things that I didn't have or I couldn't apply. And I remember I applied to so many colleges, and 2 of them, which I would not name, gave me an acceptance letter, but it was like, yes, but if you could pay this amount. And it was like a lot. And so it was like, oh, all this work? Like, because I was a really good student. I'm like, all this work for what? And then I went to college, and then I would see my friends like applying for all this scholarship or all these loans, and I couldn't even apply for a loan. And so that's when it was like, oh, there is a limitation. I think growing up with my parents, we didn't see limits because I don't think they see a limit. Essentially, that's how they are. Like, whatever we have an idea, they're like, but why not? But why not? And so I think in a sense that has sheltered me a lot, that when it came to my time to see that my parents couldn't protect me in that sense, it was like, oh, that's real. And then that's how I couldn't think about it.
I think we all had like, we have a brother too, like he also didn't exactly know what that meant.
Right.
Until he had to go to San Diego. Like, I think the typical, like, I found out that I was undocumented was when they were going to take him to San Diego to see the dolphins. I don't remember what they
SeaWorld.
There we go.
The dolphins.
You know, like the dolphins.
Oh, whales.
Oh yeah, they're whales. Yeah, they're whales.
I'm sure they have dolphins.
I think for me, I also like I knew I was undocumented, but because like for me, I had like a tough like I had a first grade teacher who would like really bully me, and I knew I was undocumented, not necessarily undocumented, but I knew there was something like quote unquote not right, not because it is wrong to be undocumented, but there was a certain hatred I very early on knew that was against me. Like I remember even like sometimes, I'm not gonna name them, but sometimes our cousins would tell me like, oh, but I when are you guys gonna go back to Mexico and stuff like that. So I didn't necessarily see being undocumented as a limitation, but I did know that there was something wrong. Not wrong, but a certain hatred coming towards me because of it. And the limitations, I didn't start feeling the limitations until until college. But it was, I don't think in college for me, because DACA, I already had DACA when I went to college. It wasn't limitations because of it. It was more like monetary. Like when you have DACA, at that time, I don't know if it's, well, at that time when I was applying to colleges, even if you had DACA, some colleges would accept you, but you had to pay as an international student, even
like
if you lived here.
Tuition.
Yeah,
so it's expensive.
It was really expensive. So like you would get all these, because I also had really good grades, so I would get all these acceptances, but like the price was ridiculous. Yeah. So we had to find a school that was here that would allow me to pay in-state tuition. And even now, like students right now who are applying to college, DACA, you can't apply for DACA anymore. So
that's what I'm wondering, what their experience is now.
Yeah, I could only imagine, because when I went to college, I didn't have DACA. So it's very limiting. And especially because you're working so hard, and it's not because of your work or because you don't have the grades, it's because you don't have a number. And so it's really difficult, and I think they probably have an extra layer, because then we have the DACA. At least when I was in that position, I couldn't compare myself. But I feel like for people that are in that position, you think about like, there's people that have DACA, like why can't I have it? And I think it creates division too. This whole narrative of the good immigrant, so it creates a lot of division.
And it might be even worse, because now people who do know what DACA is think that every single person who's undocumented has DACA. So like all the kids who are going to college, when they're like, oh, I'm undocumented, the resources that are given to them are just for students who have DACA. And I believe there has to be 0 students now that have DACA, because you can't apply for it anymore. So it's also, I think it's another extra layer of like disappointment, because you might have someone who's like, yeah, we could help you out, but then when they comes to getting that help, the resources are just not meant for you, because it's only for DACA students.
And I'd like to add, I know that there's certain scholarships that you can't even apply for, because it's for U.S. citizens only. So I would research some to send to my best friend, because she had to pay for her tuition by herself, and she was also charged out of state. So I would always try to find some that were eligible, but it would get me so angry that like there's just so many obstacles, and she's so smart, and she got by getting a bunch of scholarships. She even made it to grad school, to USC and stuff. But it was just so frustrating that like every time I would help her, I was like, holy crap, like what is wrong with you people? Like they're smart. Like they're eligible for this. So that was really frustrating. I wanted to ask you, Yaya, what ended up happening? Did you finish your career, or did that limit you because you weren't in the DACA program at the time?
So that happened the first year. My dad had to pay everything. So my tuition was like $25,000 a semester. How did my dad do that? I don't know. But he was working long hours. I really didn't see my dad that first year. Both of my parents have always been, my dad was like, "Tu estudia and we'll figure it out." And I remember one time I was texting him like, "Oh my God, like I need to pay by this time." And he figured it out. And those are conversations that we don't talk about. It's just like, we know it happened. Let's move on. And so after that they had, so the program that you were talking about, it's called AB 540. That means that you're able to pay in-state tuition. So, but I did have the in-state tuition. That still was a lot. Then we had DACA, and I was able to finish my undergrad, and then that helped. But even then, my dad had to pay. It was like $15,000 a semester. They could only give you like $10,000. I think
the California Dream Act is $10,000.
That's the max. And so I went to we went to a private college. We went to Mountain Mary's. A lot of people say like, well, why did you go to a private college? They have more financial assistance. So because they have a lot more donations and things like that. And then it was closer to our house, so we didn't have to pay like dorming. And so I did that. I graduated, and then I right away started working. I went to work for 2 years, and then I was like, I need a master's. Again, like I knew my situation, but at this time I was already working, and I was able, because I had the DACA, I was able to apply for a loan. I did the whole Sally Mae. That was my only option at the time. And then I was like, I'm working, I'm going to do this. And then boom, they're like, well, you need a citizen to be your co-signer. And then I was like, okay, great. And this is when things get real. This is when you know who your friends are, your family is. Nobody signed to be a co-signer. It was my dad's boss that signed. And he signed for the 3 years that I was in school. Yeah. This guy has been very supportive.
Yeah, shout out to him.
Like from far away, he's been very supportive. So he signed for the 3 years that I did my grad school. Yeah, I'm still paying that. But I was able to graduate. I now have a master's degree. Yay. Yeah, I'm a marriage and family therapist.
Silent class.
And so, yeah, I was able to finish, but all that because I had a whole village behind me. It wasn't just me.
Mm-hmm. I love that despite the challenges and obstacles you were facing, you still were aiming high. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
The immigrant mentality, it's something that I know, but a lot of people, they don't talk about it. They're like, hush, hush. You guys are like, oh, this is what it is, like educating people. And you're doing it on TikTok too. You've experienced haters. How have you dealt with that?
I don't look at them because it makes me sad.
Yeah, I think for me, it's I think it's just funny. I think it's also like going back to the fact that like I have been dealing with hate since I arrived, like unfortunately, but because of it, like now I'm like, you know what? My first grade teacher did it worse. Like, like grow up, do something better. I think like the hate comments that I mostly get are like, oh, ¿por qué no hablan español? And like I very much speak Spanish, but when they tell me like I'm not Latina, I'm like, dude, I have my mask, like I have my mark, you know, like if anything, if you want to compare, you know, I'm literally born there. But yeah, like I think it just doesn't hurt as much anymore because of how much I've gone through. And yeah, I think that's how I deal with it.
But I think the positive comments are way we're more like we
stopped getting so many hateful ones, especially because I think we also are really good at handling hate. Like when people say something hateful, we take it into a more like educational vibe instead of just going against them, because at some point you have to realize that people who are just there to throw hate comments like don't really care.
They're gonna do it
like you could educate them, and if they're not listening, like the person who's seeing this video will learn from it.
With the positive comments, have you ever gotten a comment being like, this is what we do it for?
Yeah. I think so. We have a lot of people reach out to us for like guidance, for like sometimes to go back to school, sometimes to start their own business. And I think that's what we want. We want people to feel seen and to feel that we're approachable, that they could email us. A lot of people have our like a private number. Yeah, like they'll text us. So I think that makes it worth it, because we don't want to come across as like, oh, there's this brand from far away, like we cannot access them, or they're not really part of the community. And I think that has been really cool.
Yeah, we always try to be as reachable as we can. Also, I think it's really amazing to be able to be open about our status, not because we want people to just be like, oh yeah, see, you should start a brand too, but because there's a lot of people who grow up being told like, well, your status is a limitation, you can't really do anything but this. And when people see us like, oh, this one's a therapist, oh, this one's doing this, and they're doing TikTok, they're doing shirts that actually are something for our community, I think it's a huge difference, and it helps people see like, you know what, I could take a different route, make my own route instead of just going straight to college. Or if you want to go to college, because we both went to college, if you want to start a business, it doesn't mean that you could just go straight to your business. You could still go get your degree, or you could just go straight to your business. It doesn't really matter, but the point of it is you could still do something that you really aspire to do without having to listen to what everybody tells you is the right way to be successful.
I feel like the undocumented status leads a lot to that business entrepreneurial spirit, because like the numbers give you the limitations of like applying to like quote unquote normal jobs. Did you grow up around that? Is that like a big part of why you started Barrio Drive, or did it inspire the name in some way as well?
Our parents own a business in Mexico. My dad had a tapiceria, which is upholstery.
Upholstery.
Oh, I don't know what tapiceria. And my mom will be selling the fabric. So they had like two different shops, but they were like related. And so we grew up around the furniture, the fabric. So we love like fabric, and actually it helps with our shirts when we like look at texture. So that was our whole upbringing. Then my mom used to be an Avon lady. So my mom would, during the summer, she would have us like put like stickers, but the stickers just basically had her name, the number. And then she would have us go around the neighborhoods and pass the...
What a girl boss.
And then seeing my dad like work throughout the time. And then at some point my mom had so many like Avon things that she started going to the swap meet. And she was the Avon lady at the rodeo at the swap meet. And
smart, actually, because that way you don't have to be bugging people. People come to you.
Right. No, and they literally still call her, and she's like, I don't have that anymore. And so then just being around that before, so my mom was at the swap meet when we had the band shirts and the vintage dresses. We were a little crazy. We were like, what if we have a storefront ESL. And so we opened a little store, but then it was during the transition between high school and college, and then I just couldn't go because I had to go to class. And so my mom right now runs it. She has a little 99-cent
but it's her own store, not ours.
Yeah, it's hers, because we just couldn't do it anymore because we were in school, so she just now sells that. So we've been around business the whole time. And so during the summer when she was selling Avon, she would buy like her little booth, and then what did we sell there? There was still vintage
dresses. Because we were trying to get those out.
Yeah, and so we would just be there. Our summers, people go to school for summer. We would go at the swap meet, and we would just sell money, and it was fun. It was.
Yeah. Well, also our mom has always had us busy. Like we almost never had a summer. We always went to summer school. My mom would put us in summer school. We would have to be, if we weren't in summer school, we would have to go to like do all the doctor's appointments, all the dentist appointments, and then go through the Avon books. But like honestly, it's what helped us a lot. Like when it was time to apply for a DACA, because you have to have proof that you were here in a specific date. We had proof that we were in summer school because my mom took us.
Yeah, I was getting it through.
I was at the dentist. Yeah, and like that's also
funny, but that's actually a real trauma.
Yeah,
So when they passed the DACA program, I think it's like June 16. Like it's a specific date.
A very specific date
that you have to have proof that you were here in the country.
But like,
and so a lot of people struggle, like, because you're off, you're not in school during the summer. So a lot of people struggle finding a document that was able to like prove that you were actually here.
Yeah, and that's also like shout out to hoarding parents, hoarding immigrant parents.
I think that's all Latino parents are like pull the old shoebox and everything.
And my mom has them like really nicely like organized. So my mom was like, here's the envelopes for you. She has specific envelopes for each child.
Wow.
So it helped us get her DACA because she was hoarding them all.
That's how my mom is at this point. The only reason I have my driver's license is because I'm supposed to have it when I'm driving. Before my mom's like, no, give me your ID, you're gonna lose it. I'm like, I want to have my ID. They don't let me even go into the movie theater because I look too young. I'm like, nope. And I'm like, fine.
Yeah, no, she has to buy tabs.
Now I was like, see, and I haven't lost it. So.
But going back into why we started the shop, I think it's also a huge thing that when DACA is going to be taken away or anything's going to be taken away, people tell us like, well, you should start a business. And it's one of the only things we could really do, because you could have DACA and there's places where if you're going to college to be a teacher, you can't be a teacher because you have to have citizenship or some form of citizenship to be a teacher. So the only option you have is to start your own business. So for us, it was not really just like, oh, we want to start a business, let's have it. It was a necessity because it's a survivor thing that we have to do. Yeah. So that's also something that really helped us start a business and our motivation to do it.
I love that because I feel like the majority of businesses that you hear about, like they successful, like I just started my own business because like daddy gave them a loan of like $50,000 and like
The first day and another 50 the next.
Yeah, or they like studied business or like they had this whole workshop. But you really are a true testament of like building from the ground up, and it's something so beautiful. The way that you not only just like sell t-shirts, but you tell a story with everything that you do, whether it's social media, whether it's you talk about a lot of different causes for your merch. How do you decide what causes to do next? What's it like the most near and dear to you?
So something I'm really passionate about is mental health. Like I said, I'm a therapist. Right now I work with victims of crime. So my specialty is working with trauma. And so just bringing awareness to mental health, and especially in our community, because it's seen, even though we talk about mental health now, it's still very taboo. So just bringing the signs that talk about that normalize the experience of going to therapy, to talking about your feelings. So we have the growing and glowing. We have healing my inner child. Oh, that's my favorite. I think that's my passion, to heal your inner child. Later
for your younger self.
I think.
Right here.
Oh my
By the way, we're all repping Barrio Drive.
If you haven't noticed, rep.
That one, I think that one's really cool for me. And then like Rompiendo Ciclos, I think it talks about that. Kind of like every generation, it gets easier in the sense of like opening up about your feelings, talking about your experience. Not that our parents or our elders didn't break any cycles, because they did, and we just continue to do that. So bringing that awareness for mental health for me, it's something that I'm really passionate about.
I love talking more about the undocumented experience, mostly because the main reason why we also started making our own merch is because we wanted to create something that really talked about our experience. I think there's a lot of merch that talks about immigrants and children of immigrants, but we are children of immigrants, but we are also immigrants ourselves. And to me, I want to have a brand that actually talks about what they want to rep and does something about it. Like you could see a lot of all these other brands who sell like Abolish ICE merch, No Human Beings Illegal merch, but when our community really needs that support, really needs that person to use their platform to advocate for us, they don't. And to me, that's something that I really wanted to do. Like, let's do merch and actually do something about it, really give back to the community and uplift our community, because I don't really see our community being uplifted. We see kids of immigrants being uplifted, and while that's amazing, I think we also need to have a space for ourselves where we're like, hey, you know what, we're here too. And like the saying, oh, we're being the voice for the voiceless. Like a lot of us, we do have a voice. We do have platforms now. And I think it's important to also shine light on the fact that not all of us are these people who are afraid, who doesn't have a voice, who are too scared to have opinions. Because while it's okay to be scared, there's a lot of us who do have voices, who do use our platforms. And I think it's something that I'm really passionate about.
I love the children of immigrant part, because it's like the first gen experience seems to be so generalized, and we're like, you may be first gen, but you also immigrated. There's the first gen who was born here and the first gen who moved here, and the culture shock is wild.
Right.
And it's also the, you know, like trying to figure out college and stuff, which is obviously limiting because of status, but your parents, even though they want to help, they don't know how to do it. And you're like alone and scared, basically trying to find resources that sometimes they may not apply to you, people who don't want to help, people who gatekeep. And that's something that I generally love, that you guys are putting that information out there. You're being vocal about it, when a lot of people are like, well, I struggle, so why you guys have to struggle too, instead of being helpful.
I agree. And I think it goes back to how we have this perception of an immigrant. This image comes, when you think about an immigrant, this image comes to your mind. And we have a lot. Like, my experience is so different from Jackson, so different from my brother. My brother came here when he was 1. And then so different from our parents, even though we came literally at the same time. Everyone has a different experience. And I think we want to highlight and show that you don't have to be one way, and that your experience does kind of shape you. And so that's what we want to bring.
What can allies do to help the undocumented community?
Support our DACA fund.
Buy our merch.
Number one, give me your coins.
Yeah, give us your coins. We we need to pay our American subscription. Venmo was, buy us, BarrioDrive.com. No, on a serious note, I think it's really important to use your platforms to uplift other undocumented creators. Like, there's a bunch of undocumented creators out there. I also think it's important to just advocate. It's not that hard, like telling somebody, like, you know what, maybe don't use the word illegal, use this, and explain why voting, even though sometimes like people think that voting doesn't do anything, sometimes it does, but mostly using your platforms, educating yourself about what's going on. Like, a lot of people don't know that the DACA thing is going up, and while it might not affect, like, there's things that people don't care because it doesn't affect them directly, but the more we learn about other people and what other people's experience is like, it helps a lot.
There's a privilege in saying I don't care about politics, because just because it doesn't affect you doesn't mean that it can't be something that 100% changes someone else's life.
Definitely.
It's also not a visible label. I feel like I've known a few friends for like a long time and had no idea about their status. And so, yeah, definitely.
Because there's a lot of taboo about it. Like, a lot of people, and it came to me around in the workplace. People were like, I was like studying for my citizenship exam, I think like a year or so ago. They were like, oh, I thought it was like, I'm like, you never know what people are going through.
Right. And I think it stems from fear, especially growing up with their parents letting them know, like, oh, you're not supposed to tell people, like, you could get deported, and you don't really start finding out. Like, I didn't know some friends were until we're like, let's travel here, or let's go to San Diego, and they're like, no, and it was like, no. And then my parents were undocumented for so long. They're U.S. citizens now. They got it through me, but thanks. I'm happy they're traveling now, and it's very nice to see, but I was familiar with it when people would like, oh, I can't because of this. I'm like, oh, I think I know why, because like my parents can, but it wasn't that. So now I became careful when asking that, because I also don't want to make someone feel like some type of way, right? Because they would love to travel and visit all of these places.
And it limits you is like, even if you wanted to go somewhere else, you have to be like, or driving or doing a road trip, because you can't take a flight.
And even then, that's scary in certain states.
Right. Yeah.
When it comes to entrepreneurship and Latino creatives, do you have any advice?
I think just do it. Like, we started a brand doing it. I know, we should get a brand new. No, I think for us, like, we grew up with our parents. Our parents have been so supportive in a way that they really don't limitate us. They are like, you want to do it, just do it. Like, why can't you? So for us, when we started the brand, we changed our name a year ago. And if we had waited to have the perfect name, we wouldn't have been where we are today. Because we started the brand so early on, I was able to do the brand when I graduated and there was COVID. So I think it's a situation where if you're waiting for the perfect time, the perfect equipment, the perfect anything, you're limiting yourself. So I think the best advice you could give someone is to tell them to just do it, like to just jump for it.
And to not be afraid to ask questions. I think sometimes people feel like they can't ask questions because they don't have a business degree. We don't have a business degree. I think going back to like the question you asked earlier, like there's so much knowledge in our community. Like, my parents didn't have millions of dollars to help us start our business, or they didn't have like friends that had businesses like that, but they had so much knowledge. Like, we have the connections we have because of our parents, because they have connections. So utilizing that, your own community and the resources, because they are there. It's just that we don't have a fancy label for it, but they're there. Another thing that I would say is to, like Jack said, don't wait, but also don't overbuy. Like, I used to like, okay, I like these earrings, we're gonna have 100, and then I would just keep them, So just do it little by little. Like Jack said, don't wait to have the perfect equipment. We never even had like a sit down of our, what is it? Like
a business plan.
A business plan. Like, the fancy things that you need to have to open a business.
And everything.
We don't have that.
We don't have a bio right now still.
And so I think sometimes when we think of, that's quote unquote the proper way to do it, but it stops you and it makes it scary and it makes you feel like you're not good enough because you don't have that. And so when you get rid of that, you just, okay, go for it. Like, why do we, you do need like all these things, but you only need to have your business registered. You don't need to do that. You don't need to go anywhere. You could do that online. You could get an EIN number. Like, those are things that take seconds. So kind of just sitting down saying, okay, this is what I need, and then do one at a time and don't overwhelm. Because when you see all the things that you have to do, it feels so overwhelming and you're never going to start. And who am I going to ask? Just do one thing at a time. And it's much faster. And I think it makes your business legit too. By having like those little things like the EIN number, especially if a person that is undocumented wants to apply for like a business loan. That's like your social security number for your business, and you don't need a social security to apply for one.
Are there a lot of loans available for businesses if you are undocumented?
I think recently I've seen
there's Immigrants Rising.
Immigrants Rising has a seed program, and from the last time that we applied, if you make a certain amount, you could apply for 100. No, not 100.
I think it was 5,000.
5,000 or 10,000. So the biggest loan is not a loan because you don't pay it back. It's $10,000 or $5,000. Even if you're barely gonna start your business, you do need a business plan for that.
But that's because it's a loan.
Yeah.
No, it's not a loan. It's a grant.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's a grant.
And so all they do is that they give you the money, and then you have to break it down in how you spend it. And then now they teach you classes. So they tell you, okay, how can you get more customers? How can you have this? So you're kind of like in little college, but for your business, and it's really, really cool.
I'm happy to hear that they have resources like that.
So wrap today's up. We want to invite you guys to manifest with us today. We want to know what are your goals for the future, what you would love to see for Barrio Drive.
Manifest vibes.
Good vibes. So right now, what we really want to have is a warehouse.
Yes.
I think, like we said, we're still in our home, the garage.
And we're growing.
And glowing.
It's gonna get yeah, we're going to.
And so we don't have a lot of space. I know, like in the TikToks, it looks like it's a warehouse. It's not. It's a garage.
Yeah.
And so we're limited in that. And so we also cannot bring a lot of extra merch because we don't have the space. So having the warehouse would not only allow us to bring more stuff, but also have more community events. One thing that I really want to do is host workshops for mental health in Spanish for our parents and our community members that only speak Spanish, but also for events where we could bring other people to sell their own items. I think creating community spaces is what we envision in the near future. I'm claiming that. And so that's one of the goals that we have.
Yeah. I would also like I think it would be really cool to figure out how to do like a movie. I've always wanted to do a movie, so I think like a movie or like a documentary would be super cool. Especially I want to have like I have the whole vision of it.
A Lifetime movie.
Yeah, a Lifetime movie would be amazing. I love Lifetime, so
why don't you just call Lifetime up?
I got
not a bad idea. You know what? I just might.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Barrio Drive, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. But you can follow us on Our Vibes Media, and you can follow Barrio Drive at...
We'll add the name.
Yeah, we'll add the name.
Or at Barrio Drive everywhere.
Give them their coins.
At Barrio Drive everywhere, y'all heard.
But thank you so much for watching. That's our episode. So thank you so much.
Bye.
Like, follow, and subscribe. Bye, guys.